Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to another phenomenal episode of Empowered Conversations, where I have amazing conversations with extraordinary people out doing beautiful things in the world in service to others. And I got a little announcement. I've been posting the pictures, but I've got my new frickin' licious bumper stickers. So if you want one, reach out and say hello. I am so excited. My business coach and I created the logo, and I could not love that logo more. I've always been wondering, like, how could I make frickin' licious pop so people understand the pronunciation of it. So anyway, guys, without further ado, I've got to introduce you to my guest today. This is going to be an empowered conversation for sure. She is an outstandingly amazing frickin' woman. She's a mother of two, and she studied fashion and virtual merchandising at the Laboratory Institute of Merchandising before studying energy medicine and advanced intuition at Essential Energy with Cindy Dale. Gina, oopsie doops, hold on one second. My earbuds, I got these earbuds that are now working as my microphone. I am so excited. Anyway, Gina, a natural intuitive, picked up many awarenesses in her life as she lived it. She naturally gravitated toward earth-based traditions without the side order of dogma. Her natural inquisitive nature led her down many magical rabbit holes near and far. She is a co-owner with her daughter of Curio Craft and Conjure, located locally here in the Charlotte, North Carolina area in NoDa. Love NoDa. Curio Craft and Conjure is a magic shop offering an array of tools, supplies, and services in an effort to help one create their own ritual, borrowing from those influences that feel right to them, regardless of beliefs or specific teachings. Practical magic can transcend lifetimes, teachings, upbringing, and race. The tools and supplies at Curio Craft and Conjure honor African, American, Asian, European, Indigenous, Latin, and Neopagan, inclusive of some Christian iconography. Gina is a holistic, intuitive master tarologist and mentor to those who want to expand their skills and create successful businesses. So guys, without further ado, drum roll, please help me in welcoming Gina Spriggs.
Hey, Stephanie. Hey, guys. How are you today?
Oh my gosh, it's such an honor to have you here. So excited that we've made this work.
Yeah, me too. I love seeing you here in the store. So when you invited me, it was an honor to say hello and to say yes, because I like to help people do whatever it is that they're doing in any way that I can. So thanks for asking me on.
Oh, you're so welcome. And guys, I'm in her store quite often, and let me tell you, it is a magical experience. Her and her daughter are so knowledgeable relative to whatever you have questions about, and whatever you'd like to achieve.
Yeah, we do help people in a lot of interesting ways, kind of whether it's creating their own practices or exploring their own personal spirituality. One of the things that is really interesting when people come into the store is that people will come in there like, well, I'm new. And I tell people we're all new, honey. We're all new. So don't feel like this is a race. I kind of tell people that spirituality is like a mansion with many doors, but we all hang out in the living room. So you enter the door that feels right to you, whether it's crystals or tarot or herbs or candle or Wiccan or pagan or shamanistic, Santeria, whatever it is. And so basically people find their way to the living room where we all hang out.
Absolutely. And I must tell everyone how I actually found you.
Okay.
So I was rotating Facebook It was like back in 2018, late 2018, and it was the Daily OM was rotating on my news feed, and it was, I think, the intuitive art of tarot, understanding tarot and being able to, through tarot, you know, receive answers to questions. And so I signed up for your course, okay? And I had signed up, have you ever heard of Edward Viga? He has a course, 365 Days to a Abundance Mindset through the Daily OM. Okay. So, but anyway, when you sign up for these things, you don't realize the proximity of the person. So I'm doing this and I'm listening. I don't know if it's day 3 or day 4, could have been day 5. And you said something about, now, because if you want to get to Atlanta via 485, I went, 485? Atlanta, I'm like, oh my God, she's talking about Charlotte. Is she in Charlotte? I immediately Googled Gina Spriggs and found Curio. I'm like, oh my God, she's here. And I think I showed up the next day.
Yeah, it's so funny.
I'm like, you know.
It's so funny how many people have taken that. Over 30,000 people have taken the art of intuitive tarot on the Daily Om. And every now and then somebody will come in here and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And I'm like, honey, I'm just a girl. You know, I fart just like you do. So it's all good. You know, let me help you find the best tarot deck for that course. But at the end of the day, you know, it is very interesting when people come in and they have that little bit of starstruck. But it's really interesting because the Daily Om is a fabulous platform where they have, you know, as you know, so many different types of courses that they offer at really reasonable prices so that people can dip their toes into something that they think they're interested in, and they actually get a chance to see if they're really interested in it. Everything from yoga to, you know, mediumship, or, you know, how to write a book. So one of the things that I really love about the Daily Om is that it has like something for everybody.
Yeah. You gave me cool chills when you were telling me about the 30,000, because imagine that's 30,000 lives that through your heart-centered offering, you have made a positive impact.
Yeah.
And
well,
I did it 3 times.
I think that we all have to remember that whether you're on the Daily Om and you've touched 30,000 lives, or whether you are smiling at somebody who is handing you your cup of coffee at Starbucks, you don't know the ripple effect that you have on people's lives. And so, you know, sometimes the ripple effect might seem innocuous to you, but I want you to know that it's there. And, you know, the weird thing about us as people is that sometimes we just, like, we can have a fabulous, fabulous day, and then someone cuts us off on the way home, and we are like, you cocksucker, you know, and we take that energy with us throughout the rest of the day. And the thing is, it's very easy to do because it's human nature. And I think that we have to train ourselves to really just focus on the positive and not the negative, right? That's why they talk about gratitude. You know, I wake up every day, and one of my very, very simple practices is that as soon as I realize that I'm awake, I keep my eyes closed because I have all kinds of animals in my room. I keep my eyes closed and I count my blessings. I literally count my blessings. And sometimes, you know, often they're the same, like top 10 blessings, but I count them every day anyway, because whatever you focus on grows.
Absolutely. 100%. You're speaking my language. And my co-host for food therapy just joined. She says she's watching and gardening. We just did in a week-long challenge, and it was gratitude jar versus complaint jar. And the concept of it was to bring awareness to how many times you're whining, bitching, and complaining.
Yeah.
And to counteract that with finding something you're grateful for, even if it's the same damn thing over and over and over. And we completed that challenge last week. But yeah, I mean, it's like how you start your day. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to wake up maybe tired or feeling knee pain or whatever, but it's about taking charge, taking ownership of this is how I want my day to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, starting with good habits. And, but you know, Gina, I love to get deep with my guests. I will just get real and raw. And one of the first questions I want to ask you is like your life experiences, epiphanies, what transpired, happened through, in your life that brought you to the mindset of what it is that you're doing through this heart-centered creation, through Curio Craft and Conjure, through your courses, through your workshops, so much that you create. What all has been
That's a great question, because I'm going to tell you guys, it's not one thing that happens. So it's a series of things. That's what life is, right? It's a series of things. So if I had to literally write the book and put the highlights in, it would be when in 2007 I moved from South Florida to Charlotte with my now ex-husband, right? And so that move took me away from friends. It took me away from a place that I loved, actually. But within and the thing is, it was literally like that downward spiral of that relationship. That relationship was ending. And so we were probably together in the house that we bought together for 7 months before he moved out. We separated, but that was the pivotal point, because I realized that I had no more ties to anything that anyone expected of me. I no longer had friends that thought I was Mrs. So-and-so. I no longer worked in a place or in an environment where people were expecting certain things from me. And I was in this new city, Charlotte, North Carolina, where I said, well, hell, I could be whoever I want to be. And guess what? I decided to be myself. I decided to literally start reading tarot in public. I started to do readings at this little metaphysical store on weekends. And I did it for fun, because it was something that I had been doing since I was 16 years old, but it was never in public. And it was based on all of these other ideas and ideals that I thought that I had that I no longer hold true in my life. Now, my ex-husband and I are great friends now. He's not a bad person, but we weren't supposed to be married, right? And so the thing is, as my life progressed, I was diagnosed with cancer in 2011, and that literally led me down this rabbit hole of the things that I wanted to do before I died. And I literally started writing down these things that I wanted to do before I died, right? And then as I one day really stopped and looked at the list, I realized that this was not a list of things that I wanted to do before I die. It was a list of the things that basically detailed the way I wanted to live. And I was like, whoa. So fast forward, that was another milestone. So there was divorce, and then there was cancer, and then there was death, right? And so by the time 2016 rolled around, and in this time I had not only left the relationship, but I also left the establishment. So I stopped working for the man, right? And I started working for myself. And, the funny thing about that was that I really thought that I would be able to, do readings and make a living. And I was making 6 figures, and I realized I'd have to bust my ass, morning, noon, and night, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, in order for me to make what I was making and charge what I had been charging. I actually found a business. I found help, right? And so that was the time in my life where I actually had to ask for help. And that was not something that I was used to doing. So not only with being diagnosed with cancer, but also, correcting and creating a business that was going to sustain my daughter, my kids, and I. And so that was a really interesting journey. I found an awesome business coach. Her name is Christine Kane. She has a book out now called The Soul Sourced Entrepreneur. And she's actually based out of Asheville, North Carolina. Awesome lady. I'll tell you what, she was a pivotal force in my life. My 2 favorite teachers in my life were Christine Kane and Cindy Dale. And the weird thing is they're born on the same day, which is freaking crazy. But anyway, I digress. So in 2016, 2016 was a horrible time for my family, actually, because first of all, my children's dad died. And that was the start of 2016. That was in March. And by August, my partner died and my mother died 2 weeks apart. Then my aunt also died, and then my dad died that following February. So I had a year of fucking hell. And it reminded me that, you know, you have to live your life. And the weird thing is it helped me recognize that I wanted to squeeze the juice out of this bitch, right? Like I am not, I'm just like, you know what? If that means that I'm eating the food that I want, I'm going to eat the food that I want. I want to sleep with that person, I'm going to sleep with that person. I want to make sure I am living this life to the fullest, right? And so with that, I got another re-diagnosis of cancer, which is another reminder, live your life. I really was tested with different interesting people in my life that were almost like making cameos. I guess they had some other lessons that I had to learn. But at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you something right now, and I mean this with my heart and soul, Stephanie. If I walked out my door tomorrow and got hit by a car, I have lived my life the way I wanted to live my life. I love my children and I love the people in my life. Anyone that I know that's in my life, if I love them, they know it, because I don't leave you without telling you I love you, right? And then the other thing is, to your point about contributions, yes, I think that part of life is living it and squeezing the juice out of it, but also feeling good about the contributions that you're making. And the thing about contributions, in my opinion, is that you have to do things authentically. There are people that want to do things so that they can actually, I don't know Angelina Jolie, so I'm going to use her, but I really don't have anything against her. But, basically say, look, these are all the kids that I adopted, or look at all the great things that I'm doing, or look, I have given money to all these things, all these places, all these unfortunate things. And I think that if that is your motivation to do it so that you can actually say that you did it, that's one thing. But when you do it because it comes from your heart, it's something else. And I think that there is more quality in that offering. And so, when I do my readings, whether it's at the store or whether people are taking my courses that are on my website, it's ginaspriggs.guru. I have a plethora of courses. I have something that's called the Oracle Academy. My intention is to help people in a way that I needed help myself, and to help them recognize their talents, gifts, and skills, whether it's intuitively or professionally. And when I say professionally, my intention is to only help people who want to actually honor and master this aspect of their lives. So if they are organizing closets and they want my help, I'd be like, I'll give you a reading, but I'm not going to help you with your business. But people that are intuitives, I like to help them with their business, even if they don't end up using their craft, like to do readings or to do energy work, but to actually help themselves and the people in their sphere of influence. It's actually just, the thing that really floats my boat. So in terms of, making sure that my family knows that I love them with my heart and soul, and then making sure that people around me know that, you can live your life, you can be who you are, you can be how you are. Literally, Charlotte has seen me. When I moved to Charlotte, I was married, got divorced. I had relationships. My partner was a woman who passed away. So like, people have seen me in relationships with men, in relationships with women, not giving a shit what anyone else thinks, right? Yeah. And the thing is about that is that I recognize that being my authentic self, and now I'm in a relationship with a beautiful man. He's an amazing guy. But I say all this to say that when people see me being my authentic self and not caring, it's like, wait a minute, I can do it too. And I think that being your best self gives people permission to be their best selves too.
Gina, 100,000 billion trillion %. I had waves of cold chills literally the entire time you were talking. And to one of your points about, first I wanted to address, like you said, you could get hit by a bus. So I want to live forever, but if I did die, I feel strongly that I have made an impact through my authentic self, through being funny, whatever that is, whatever that is. And that's what I love, is because when you give people, when you're being your authentic self, okay, so to the point of what, when you brought up Angelina Jolie, not that you're saying that that's how she is or what she's, or the reason she's doing it, but let's hypothetically say it is. That's coming from outside of her instead of coming from within side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when you're living and when you're doing from your authentic self and showing up in a way that, you know, that giving other people permission to be their authentic self, that is why you're like, hey, I'm living my best life. I'm squeezing the fuck out of life. You know, what a gift I am to, you know, to myself and to others through that. But if it's something, you know, that sounds good, that I should be doing that because that looks good. Again, that's something from outside instead of something true and deep within your heart.
Yeah,
and
that's
you know,
what I
love about what you said.
And to your point, you know, the thing is, I think that we all go through stages in our lives where we are doing the things because we're supposed to, right? So I did that. I'm not saying that I never did it, and I'm not saying that I'm a saint, because I'm not. I'm a human being, and I fuck up like everybody else. But what I recognize is that I am no longer, and I'll tell you what, when my parents died, I mean, I really could care less what anybody thinks about me now. Nobody pays my bills but me, you know, and I really come from a completely different place where they are the only two people on the planet that I really, really cared what they thought. Now, it's like, you know what, do you, that's fine. But, you know, I'm not trying to belittle anybody's experience in terms of, you know, being where they are or why they might do something. I'm just telling people where I am and the reason why I'm here. Because I think that we are all on our own personal spiritual journey. And sometimes, you know, it can be pretty shallow, but sometimes it gets really deep. And, you know, and at the end of the day, it's ours, right?
And everyone has those shallow experiences. And just like you just said, it's like, I'm not perfect either. And throughout my life, these situations that I've been in or choices that I have made that didn't lead to something great taught me something. And another thing is, you know, live your life caring what other people think, and you are their prisoner. But you come to that mentality from living your life or encountering certain situations in which you weren't living from your authentic truth.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's one of my biggest things. And being in your authentic self can be painful because, and I think you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, is, you know, it creates haters. But it's not that everybody possesses everything that could exist, that which exists. Everybody possesses it, but it's about what you choose to actualize on and live from. So when you are living your authentic life, squeezing the fuck out of life, being your best self, that's so intimidating to those who haven't realized their worth and value and their special, unique, amazing fabulousness.
Yeah,
so they can
to your point, you know, there is so many, you know, a lot of people think, oh, well, you're in the spiritual community. Everybody, you know, it must be all love and light. Actually, no. It's just like being involved with religion. You know, you've got as much haters in religion as you do have in the spiritual community. There are a lot of people that haven't, whether they haven't been able to make themselves financially successful, because I find that a lot of intuitives have a hard time with managing their money, right? And so that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to help them. But here's the other thing, you know, I'm going to tell you that when I was going through one of my cancer experiences, I was literally helped so much by this community. And it was really like, it was heartwarming, it was astonishing, it was humbling, right? Because I needed help with my my insurance wasn't going to cover it. Actually, I was trying to figure out if I even had insurance at the time, but I just know that the community came together and they helped me I had a GoFundMe and the whole 9 yards. What was really kind of sad, actually, is that sometimes people like to see you in that wanting space. But when you pull out of it and you're like, okay, I'm back and I'm, you know, and I'm here and I'm shining and I'm doing my thing, then what you see are the haters popping up. And so the thing is, you know, whether you have decided to be your authentic self, which can actually be a very lonely spot in the beginning, because, you know, especially if you're breaking away from different types of religion or thought processes, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, this isn't me. It can be lonely for a second, but I guarantee you that you can find people that are more in alignment with who you are. But I will say that the interesting thing is that how people come and go in your lives, when they come and go in your lives, why they come and go in your lives, like how they show up. People showed up to help me, but when I got on my feet and then opened up a store and then this and then that, you know, daily own, you know, all of these different things, it was like, oh, I don't know who she thinks she is. I'm like, wait a minute, you just helped me, you know, you just helped me last year and now you're hating on me. What is this? So, but what I have learned to do is help just allow people to be people. I don't make any grandiose, I don't draw any grandiose lines in the sand. I'm not like, well, I don't like you and I don't like you forever. You know, basically, when it comes to those types of situations, I let people move through whatever it is that they've got to move through, because sometimes they come out the other end and we can hang out at a party and have a great old time. I don't expect it, but I'm open to it. And so I say all this to say that we are all on this little journey on our own. We're moving at our own pace. You know, it's just it's fascinating when people have this idea that they have to be a certain way. You know, sometimes people come into Curio Craft and Conjure and they'll say, well, you know, I have to come out to my family. And I'm thinking, oh, they're coming out because they're gay. And no, they're coming out as non-Christian. I'm like, what? That's a thing? You know, I didn't realize that was a thing, that you have to actually come out to a family member because you're non-Christian. And so what I'm learning here, because I'm from the North, and in the North, nobody cares. But in the South, it's a big stinky deal. And so what I'm learning is that we have become just this store, a place where people just find peace. They walk in and they literally, we see them take a breath. It's like, oh, you know, I feel like I can be myself in here. And we haven't even done anything. All we did was say hello. If you have any questions, let us know. That's it. That's our spiel. That's all we got, you know? In the meantime, they're feeling at home, they're feeling at peace, and they're feeling safe.
Yeah. And, you know, speaking of that specifically, you know, you know, in my mid-20s is when because I grew up Southern Baptist, you know, and just so much about it just never made any sense to me. In my mid-20s, I went to the Bible looking for answers. And that's when I was like, I literally pushed the Bible out in front of me. Like, you gotta be fucking kidding me with this shit. You know, and it's just like, but at that moment of that shock was overwhelming sense of freedom.
Yeah.
On the other side of shock of what I was reading that they didn't teach us in Sunday school and worship service, youth group, children's choir, you know, whole shebang. With it's like freedom. And, you know, and then the more you ask questions, it's amazing how the universe shows up, you know, and gives you those answers. And, you know, while I consider myself atheist, I also consider myself very spiritual. And when I say spiritual, like when I walk into Curio Craft and Conjure, like to me, this is God. We are God. Everything is God. God is not Allah, Yahweh, something where if you don't believe this, you're going to this fictitious place that was made up to keep people in control called hell. And it's just like, you know, and when, you know, I was a biology major, and during my organic chemistry class one day, I happened to be just gazing at the periodic table. And I was like, everything that exists, which exists, is all made up of different conglomerations of those atoms. Hence, everything is one. Everything is of itself. Everything is God. And it's like, you know, doing tarots. I mean, like, you know, Malia, I'm part of her groups as well. And I know you work real closely. I love her. And ironically, I got to tell a story. I had a reading with Malia last week. And then I came to have a reading with Gianna, your daughter, on, I think it was last Friday. And OMDMG, if they weren't telling me the same thing, there was something they brought up about the eighth chakra.
Interesting.
And I'm getting cold chills again. And I'm like, OMG. And it's funny because Gianna told me about turtles. It's something to do with turtles. in my present space. And she goes, just pay attention. And I didn't see a single turtle. And it's funny because she knows about something else going on, particularly in my home. But when that energy was released in my home as of yesterday morning, I hadn't seen all weekend. I'm like, damn, Gianna, where's the turtles? Damn, if I haven't seen turtles. Things about rotating on my feet about turtles. Yesterday, I wanted to change my profile picture to something, celebrating pride. And there was nothing at the time, but I saw a turtle. I was like, well, I'm going to change it to a turtle for a day. And it's just like amazing because, again, there was something in my home that was blocking some of what I was able to give and receive. But as soon as that energy was gone and the energy was clear and released, and that's spiritual. That is God to me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, they say that the statement is I am that, and the I am that is anything that you can point to, whether it's a person, an animal, a plant, or a crystal. So literally that is the divine. Everything has a spirit. Now, not everything has a soul, but everything has a spirit. And that spirit is that spirit that, in my opinion, in my belief system, is what connects us all. So, and I don't really care what you call it. I don't care what you call it.
Exactly.
But that's, it's interesting because a lot of people, they need the cushion of comfort of what they've known. There are a lot of people in the hoodoo tradition that love using the Bible. And as a matter of fact, we have this, this Bible's got to be like almost 100 years old in the store. And we used to have it on the floor as a display. And it's sitting right here in my face. But what's really interesting is that it helps people honor their magic while feeling like they are also bringing God into their magic. Right. And that's fine. You know what? If that's what makes you feel good, then go for it, man. Because at the end of the day, as long as you are recognizing that you have the power to create the changes you desire in your life, you can call it a ritual, you can call it a prayer, you can call it whatever it is that you want. But the reality is, from my perspective anyway, is that if you pray or if you're doing a ritual and then you don't do anything that is practical to follow it up, whether you want to call it, faith without works, I think that's what they call it in religious terms, or if you are basically just kind of in quantum terms, because for me, magic is quantum. It's quantum physics. And so for me, it makes sense. Like I understand how it makes sense. I understand how it works. And so for me, it's not woo-woo, it's totally woo-real. I am famous for pulling in the woo-real. And so, when you are doing a ritual or whatever, I know that I'm actually conspiring with unseen forces to co-create my desires.
That was a perfect explanation. And when I go back and rewatch this to share bullet points, I am going to, oh my God, I love that. Because that put into words what it is that I'm describing about the sense of being and existing, that every particle in the universe is created. And because I believe in prayer, for lack of a better word, is the description of what you just said. But you're right. It's not about just, oh, please give me this or let me have this or help this person. It's about how can I take action. And for years and years and years, I have written and written and written. I have notebooks, stacks of notebooks where I've written manifesting my goals, writing and writing and burning candles and tarot cards and vision boards and just focusing.
I love vision boards.
And and like and speaking it because like one of my biggest goals and dreams is to be hosting multiple cooking shows for the Food Network. And it's and again it comes from here, from the very first time I ever saw the Food Network back in 98, 97.
Nice.
And I loved to cook since I was a child with, my grandmother inspiring me. And I'm like, oh, and I was in college. I'm like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have my own cooking shows on the Food Network. And then since then, it's become more of a wanting to share the concept of how eating healthy, it's delicious. It can be deeper, richer, delicious. It can be easier to prepare. It can be more affordable, you know, and just bringing that concept because, you know, realizing, and again, it comes from self-awareness, personal growth, and loving yourself. But loving yourself comes from, again, realizing your worth and value. And if you haven't asked these deeper questions, then you're less likely to operate from that space, and then you are intimidated by those because it's a process. It's not. I'm not just fabulous. This is a culmination, a cultivation, you know, of so many years since I was like 21 years old. Work.
Yeah.
And it continues until I'm no longer on the earth.
You know, one of the things that I love about my daughter is that Gianna went to school to be a chef, right? She always, like you, she's always loved to cook. She didn't get that from me, I can tell you that. Her dad actually did like to cook, and he was a great cook, actually. And so she went to chef school, and she worked in some of the best restaurants in Charlotte. And then she realized something. She realized that while you are working as a chef, a sous chef, a line prep, all those titles in the kitchen, that people are yelling at you all the time. Get it done, get it done. And people are like doing all this stuff, and this energy is going into the food. And she's like, that doesn't, and so she was so cognizant of the energy that was going into the food as it was being prepared. She was like, I can't do this. This is not the kind of food that this is not, you know, when you cook for somebody, it really is a way to tell them that you love them, right? And so, or when you're preparing food from love, it's actually more nourishing than preparing food because you got to get it out. And so it's really fascinating when she made that decision to step away from the restaurant industry. It wasn't because she didn't like it. It was because she loved it, but she didn't like the environment in which she was cooking for people. She didn't want to cook for people under those conditions. And I thought it was fascinating that she was able to make that connection between the two. You know, she's got a very interesting intuitive gift. When I was pregnant with her, it was my gift for a minute. And I actually thought it was just me being pregnant, and it ended up being her actual gift. You know, she would never tell you this, but she's got a psychic sense of smell. So now I'm telling the world, right, that she's got a psychic sense of smell. She can smell certain types of issues with people. She can smell certain types of diseases. She can smell all kinds of stuff. And it's really interesting because when I was pregnant with her, I could smell people's business. I could smell, you know, what they did last night. It was not fun living in New York City and smelling people like that. It was like I had a whole like, wow, you know, riding on the subway, you don't want to do that. It was like a sensory overload. But actually her skills come to great use here in the store because we are the only magical store in Charlotte that I'm aware of that makes their own magical oils. And so, you know, whether it's, you know, we have our signature, we've got a couple of signature oils in house. One is called Glory Oil, which actually helps you be seen. We have Glory Water, Glory Oil, and then we've got another oil that's called Lusty. And Lusty is phenomenal because it basically enhances whoever you're sleeping with. It enhances your sex life. And the real cool thing about Lusty is that we have it in 3 formulas. So we've got Lusty Q, Lusty for if you're having sex with him, or Lusty if you're having sex with her. They all smell a little bit different, but they are so powerful. We always test our magical oils before we sell them, and we've gotten such amazing feedback from the people that have used Lusty that it's one of our like top selling oils, and it's really just for great sex. I mean, this is not about love. This is about lust. There's a difference. So, yeah.
I love that, Gina. I love that. And I love the story you just shared about Gianna and being a chef and what she came to realize through the energy of what she was creating and how her mindset and heart set were being put into the food based upon the energy around her. Guys, think about that. The impact that you're making. You're always making an impact. We're heart-centered beings. We're always in a give and take or an exchange of energy. And because I notice sometimes, like when I'm cooking, like the Iron Chef, like they're always in a hurry. They're always in a hurry, and that somehow I pick that up. I'm always in a hurry, even if there's no reason to be in a hurry. But I absolutely love that. And the other day when I was, after my reading, I was telling her about my dreams and desires with the Food Network. She goes, if you ever meet David Chang, you tell him I said hello. David, and I about like had an out of body experience when she mentioned that, because I love his show Ugly Delicious, and now he's got breakfast, lunch, and dinner with through Ugly Delicious. It's one of the best Netflix documentaries. And he was in Vancouver, Canada with Seth Rogen, and they were just walking around and talking, and it gave me this ding, 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 ding idea for a cooking show, which I'm not going to talk about today. But I remember just like I almost cried when she brought that up, because of the epiphany I had just a couple nights before through watching Breakfast, Lunch, and Dinner on Ugly Delicious.
Nice.
About a new cooking show idea. So, but I cannot wait until rewatch this episode. I know I've said that, but because there's so, I've had cold chills like almost the entire time.
Oh, cool.
And I wanted to speak, because you were talking about your lusty oil. The other day as I was leaving, you were going in to do a podcast with a woman named, say her name again?
Canella.
Ella.
Canella.
Canella. And when I got home, I was watching this podcast, and I was just riveted. And it was about a lot of, the things that you have shared, and like that divine, feminine, lusty sexuality. And it's not about being promiscuous and in a way that is demeaning to oneself. Like, oh, I'm just fucking the fuck. Or I'm not being concerned or being cautious about who I'm sharing that energy. For me, sex and sexuality and who you're sharing that experience with is about a wanting to have that chemical exchange, that lustful, I love the word lustful, experience with another person. And I love the way in which y'all were talking about that, that day.
I think that one of the points, and actually had come up after one of our first podcasts together, we were talking about not just the energy exchange and the fact that every time you sleep with somebody, you are creating an energy exchange. And so as women, we want to be very mindful of what energy we want to give and what energy we want to get from whoever we're sleeping with. Not because anything bad's going to happen if you don't, but what will happen is any old thing. And so you might end up giving something of yourself that you don't want to, or actually receiving something from someone that you don't want to. Honestly, I think that's probably one of the energetic foundations of STDs, and I'm not saying that in any shitty, shameful way. I'm just saying, isn't that something to consider? So, but the other thing that really was the impetus of that particular show was the fact that very few people are aware that, when we talk about the patriarchy, which has nothing to do with hating men, but it has to do with that top 2% of entities or energies that are basically, the man behind the curtain, I'm going to say, basically making all the rules and making everything happen, but that they're telling men, hey, you can go out there and be a man whore and good for you. And they're telling women, if you sleep around too much, you're going to be a whore. You're going to be labeled a whore, Jezebel, but in the meantime, energetically, now this is quantum physics, energetically, when men sleep with, and it doesn't make a difference if they're sleeping with another man or a woman, when men are having orgasms, actually, what happens is that actually they need to rest. After that, they need to rest. Think about it, ladies. If you've ever slept with your husband or your boyfriend and then he rolls over and goes to sleep, it's a natural thing. Don't take it personally. Where women, not only do we want to stay up and talk for an hour and talk about, and then when I was 3, like we can have a conversation because it empowers us. It energizes us. It energizes and potentizes our auric field. And so when you recognize that what these top 2% entities or people are doing was trying to keep everybody stupid, everybody, right? Trying to keep women, depressed, I'm going to say, in terms of not really
And
exploring their power and trying to keep
Mhm.
men, telling them to run out and act like man whores because that actually makes them tired. And so the thing that we have to remember is two things. The two things that I want you to get from this particular piece of the segment is, number one, choose the energy that you want to give and receive from whoever you're sleeping with. And number two, remember that when you have an orgasm, that actually potentizes your auric field, and it makes you more powerful and you more of a force to be reckoned with. When you look at a lot of the, you go back in history and you look at all of the madams back in the day, they were women that were they were sources of major power. And so, I think it's something to think about. Even if you don't believe me or agree with me, that's totally fine.
Right.
But it's something to consider.
And my Bluetooth died, so I had to put on my headset.
Okay.
But, to your point, so I also think that men need to be, I think we all in any, interaction need to be mindful of who we're choosing. So even men should be choosing not just to spread themselves just to any, but I hate that false dichotomy that exists between male and female sex drive, because it is based on bad science and incomplete scientific data. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the book, Dr. Tatiana's Sexual Advice for All of Creation, by Dr. Olivia Johnson. I have that book right here.
Cool.
She talks about, okay, so there was a study on the Drosophila fruit fly. And through the study of this Drosophila fruit fly, Melanogaster, I think, the specific species, anyway, doesn't matter. What they observed when they observed the male and female fruit flies procreating or fornicating, was that the male and female would would fornicate, and then if any other males came to fornicate with the female, she would kind of ward them off and the males kept going with other females. Well, that's it. Women only want one guy, and men just want to fuck. Had they studied it like 1 or 2 weeks longer, they would have seen the females go on a fuck frenzy. And from this concept, this is what has been perpetuated upon human beings and has given a license to promote that bullshit, given a license to men go out and have as much, and you're more of a man, and women, you whore, you slut, you vile. Right. And that mentality, it subconsciously dictates the way in which we, live in the world. But I think the more we're becoming aware and we're, again, asking these questions and we're exposing ourselves to a broader perspective of what really is real and what really is biology when it comes to sex and sexuality, we do start to learn and understand, the real truth. And it's not what we've been conditioned to believe for eons and eons and eons. Yeah. And it brings up that book that you and I were talking about, When God Was a Woman. And you and Canelo were talking a little bit about that same concept that this book could be written about, is, worship used to be the divine feminine. And again, it's not about hating men. Feminism is not about hating men. The rise of the divine feminine is not about hating men. It's about, balancing out the energy between men, because we all have masculine energy. I actually have a natural more masculine energy. I always have, and feminine energy, because men possess feminine energy as well. And it's about bringing that into balance. And what I loved about what you and Canelo were talking about is, how, and, they talk about that in the book, is, sexuality and dance was the worship of the feminine energy, and women were the ones that were leading the wars, which I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I don't think we need war. If we really, we don't need war. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, where do these concepts come from? And then how did that patriarchal, that more masculine control of
Yeah,
women
where
and
did they
female
come from?
energy.
And one of the things that I pointed out in that interview was that there is a book that we have here in the store, and the book is not about this, by the way, you guys. It's actually about Italy's witches and medicine women, and that's actually the title of the book, Italy's
Yes.
Witches and Medicine Women. It's written by a lady, Karen Crisis, awesome lady, just love her. But she actually has a couple of books out. But at one point in the book, in the very beginning, actually, she talks about how this, how all over the world at one specific time, it seemed that this patriarchal assumption took over, where women were the midwives and the healers and the herbalists and the doulas and all these things. And then, of course, there was, this is before the witch trials, by the way, right?
Yes.
And so where men felt like they wanted to learn, and the women taught them. And then they kind of just took over and kind of pushed the women aside, which is the reason why you see that even to this day, most doctors are men, because it became a field that was run and dominated by men, but it was originally not so at all, as a matter of fact. And the thing is, women actually became property for men. They became, I mean, if you look back into, just American history, it wasn't until I think it was the 60s that women could even vote or own property or have credit cards. I mean, you would think that this is, when you really look at history, I invite you to look at history from the perspective of who wrote it, because they tell the story. They tell the story that they want you to hear. Exactly. But to think about women being treated like cattle is, to me, just as ridiculous and far-fetched as racism. It's just like, oh well, these black women don't feel pain. Just stick needles in them, and they don't feel anything. And it's like, what the fuck makes you think that? And so it's really interesting when you get into all of these little details of this country's history, and not just this country, by the way, you guys. It's every freaking country,
all over the world,
all over the world. And that's the thing. And so it's literally about you taking the time to do your research so you can come to your own conclusions. And one of the things that I always share with people is, find two different pieces of contradicting information, so maybe you'll learn something. Unfortunately, I have neighbors that as I've lived in my house for 14 years, and my neighbors live across from me in the cul-de-sac. We've never agreed on politics.
Right.
Ever. But the thing is, I don't really care. It's never been my thing. But there was a point in time during 45's reign where we weren't necessarily talking, because they were like, I couldn't wrap my head around they couldn't have a conversation. It was literal, and there are a lot of people like this. There are people that lost friends during that last presidency. Because at the end of the day, people weren't able to have conversations. And I think that if you can't have a conversation, you can't learn, right?
Absolutely.
And if you can't learn, then what's the use? So find the two pieces of information, or the person that believes something different than you, so that you can have a conversation, that you can actually explore different differences of opinion, so maybe you can learn more, right? And it doesn't necessarily, I'm not talking about politics right now, I'm just talking about history, which actually comes through politics. But because I think it's a good thing to know for yourself, so that you can come to your own conclusion. I think that, unfortunately, we don't question authority, and that's the very thing that we should do.
If you're not at the table, how can you be a part of writing what is true, or your version of the truth? And to your point about, during Trump's, presidency, I had one of my Trump supporting friends write something on Facebook, and this was at the beginning of the Democratic debates. And he had written on Facebook, he said, other than hateful rhetoric for Trump, what does anybody have positive to say about the Democrats? Or what do you like about the Democratic candidates? That's what it was. And I said, number one, you'll never hear me say anything ugly or hateful about Trump or any of his supporters. We all have a journey. We all have a life experience, and I cannot expect someone to see my mindset, because my eyes are from my mindset. I said, however, what I will tell you, what I love about Bernie Sanders, what I love about Marianne Williamson. I said, number one, 100 years ago, women didn't even have the right to vote. I said, and I was using this as an analogy, as a metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
I said 100 years ago, women obtained the right to vote and have property because 200 years ago, people started screaming out and planting seeds. I said 300 years ago, if you would have said woman and right to vote and owning property, people would have been like, you're fucking nuts. Because of the current mindset and the current times. But look how we've evolved, and we still have so much farther to go. And speaking of, when you were talking about racism and African-American history, have you seen High on the Hog? It is a food documentary.
But I hear it's really good, the food document. Yes, I hear it's really good.
I just completed it a couple nights ago and was riveted. And what I can't stand is that, again, you have the white people telling the history. Right. And he does this documentary where he's traveling and he's talking to all these people, these Black people who their ancestors would contribute. Like a lot of the food in which we experience and we eat was here. It was what was being cooked and prepared by the scraps that were thrown out. And this is some of the most elegant and most amazing cuisine, and the stories, and like the stories of the cowboys. And I'm not going to ruin it because I want,
I'll watch it.
But it's like, if you're not at the fucking table, if you've never been allowed to tell your story, how do we even know? Right. Like, I learned so much.
Right. Well, the thing is, you always have to consider whoever's telling the story is the winner of whatever situation, and they're going to tell their version of the story. Why don't you hear the other person's side? When I look at this whole, I'm not trying to get all political, but between Israel and Palestine recently, I was just like, I'm appalled. I'm appalled by the fact that that the United States is supporting Israel while they are displacing these Palestinians who have lived in their homes. Yeah. And I'm like, and this is just bullshit all over again. And this is, I have, one of the things about Curio Craft and Conjure is that I call it melting pot magic, because we do like to bring in other cultures. Most, not for nothing, but most African Americans are some type of influence, whether it was through a relationship. Like there was a lot of that in my heritage, where there were a couple of different races that got together and created. And I can tell you, I can go back to the 1500s in my family and see this influence of different cultures between obviously African, but Native American, Scotch, Irish, English, so it's just like all of these influences. Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, what we've got here in the store are all of these influences as well. And what we try to do is help people in an inclusive environment that doesn't basically say this is better than that. If anything, I don't care if you come in here toting your Bible, as long as you don't try to convert me, I'm good. Right. So the thing is, I'm not saying that we know about every single one of these practices, but the interesting thing about hoodoo is that hoodoo actually comes from all of the different cultures that came to this country. So whether they were European, African, Spanish, Native American, who was already here, Jewish, Asian, all of these different cultures came together and created hoodoo. And so that's what hoodoo is. And so it's an influence of all these things. And personally, I think that together we have more power than we do separately. And there is a war tactic, and everybody is probably aware of it, and they might not know it's a war tactic, but it's divide and conquer. And I really believe that is what the top 2% is trying to do for us as people. They're trying to keep us separate so that we don't come together and say, hey, what's going on up there? As opposed to now we're just bickering amongst ourselves over what, and that's bullshit. It's bullshit.
Right. And that stems from, have you read the book Trance of Scarcity?
No.
That stems from that scarcity, lack mentality, that there's not enough. Even if they're billionaires, they still have this lack and scarcity mentality that I have to have control, or, and it's separate. And I think, and that's what a lot of organized religion does, is it separates us. We are all of one another. We are all of each other. Everything is one, and it's one with the trees and this computer screen and the air I'm breathing and the water I drink, the flowers that are sitting there in the vase, from the stone that I get at your place to the open roads incense that I burn. And everything is of itself. And when you realize how much you are of someone else and everyone else, then you realize that the power you have to see everything in love. And I was having a conversation with someone recently where she was saying, what I was saying was possible. I was saying, I think that anything is possible. Anything that is conceived in the mind can be a reality. I mean, think of everything that is in our reality right now. It was first conceived here, and it's about planting seeds. Will certain things that this utopian idea of maybe what I have in my heart that is a possibility, will it happen in my lifetime? I'm not naive or stupid enough to believe that is, but it could be possible 100 years from now. It could be possible 3,000 years from now. If anything is possible for anyone, anything is possible.
Yeah, I agree.
For anyone. And
I agree. And I think that, I think that there are those of us who want that. Yeah. And it's not because of anything other than the fact that we know it's possible. Yes. Right. And so, and the other thing is, if you believe in reincarnation, then you'll be here for that. And we'll be part of that. We'll be part of that, that whole experience. Because, not only are we able to, kind of petition and work with our ancestors, but we can also keep in mind that we might be our future selves ancestors now. How about that?
Absolutely.
So
cold chills again. And to that, so reincarnation makes sense to me. And you can, based upon, it's either the first or the third law of thermodynamics. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed.
That's right.
It just transfers into another form. It never dies, and it's never not there. It's always, it just is. And that is why the concept of reincarnation makes so much sense, is that when the matter, or the conglomeration of atoms that make up this physical body, die, or, for lack of a better word, it's still living. It's still always. And
it's repurposed. Think about it. You were in your grandmother's womb, right? So the egg that made you was inside your grandmother. So it's like, we are, I mean, if you, and that's the kind of stuff that people, they would love to say, oh, this is woo, but the reality is it's actual science. Especially if you read books like The Holographic Universe.
One of my favorites.
One of my favorites, right? You'll know.
Yeah, I remember one of the incidences, or one of the stories they were talking about. If you really, with every ounce of your being, fervently believe that you could walk on water, you would indeed walk on water. But there is still that seed of doubt that exists in our current, that's not going to happen. And it's a subconscious, that's one of my favorite books. Remember when they were talking about how the people would be in such a trance, and they would lay on a spike, and then somebody would take a cleaver and it wouldn't puncture. They wouldn't.
Actually, what's this guy's name?
Michael Talbot.
Michael Talbot, but there's this other guy, his last name is Schwartz, who, oh my goodness, his name will come to me. But basically, he wrote several books, but he was also the type, he could actually take a needle and puncture his skin, and it would come out the other side, and he wouldn't even bleed.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think I've heard that story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's a very true. And he wrote books, and he was able to be that person that was able to do this thing that, science basically says can't happen. Right.
Right. But science is, in essence, again, science and spirituality are one and the same. But it's just different ways of explaining the same thing.
Well, yeah. and then you've got the Newtonian science, and then you've got the, I don't know what the other term would be, but like where there are shifts in energy and gravity does not apply, right? So that's that quantum, you know, that is and you know, Stephen Hawking basically proved mathematically that we exist in 11 different dimensions at the same time. He was able to prove that mathematically, and that's what he could prove. So just imagine what he couldn't prove. You know, it's
exactly. Thank you. Infinite. Infinite. The world is infinite. You know, we have had so many comments, but I just didn't want to interrupt the flow of our conversation. Let's see. I just wanted to go back up. I wanted to acknowledge these. Joe Dale, my girl, Joe Dale. She says, I'm ready. Another Facebook user. I don't know who they are. They're probably joining in from DFL and you. Hey, ladies. Sandra says, so excited to be able to listen today. Siobhan says, I'm watching and gardening. Amen. Count your blessings. I'm grateful for the same bed every day.
Me too.
Speaking to your, like when you get up and you're just so grateful. Hearts love Joe. That's from a YouTube. It says hi. And then she says, can I get a reading? Yeah, Hearts love Joe. And then Carol Boston says, hey, ladies. Hearts love Joe says, wanted to ask if a guy I am interested in is going to contact me soon or if he still likes me. I haven't talked to him in a while because I recently reached out to him. That's a question Hearts Love Joe is asking.
Okay. Well, you know what? She can come in the store and get a reading.
Yeah. Tell it. Give it. Curio Craft and Conjure in NoDa, NoDa, in the Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yep, we're 3204 North Davidson Street on the second floor. So a lot of people expect to find us on the first floor. We're on the second floor. We are the home of High Magic.
Home of High Magic, right across from the Mac Tabby Cat Cafe.
Yep.
Yeah. Sandra says, oh, somebody says, Arta, Sandra, DM me for your reading. No, go to Curio Craft and Conjure. That's who I'm promoting today. Not that you're not fabulous, Adigo, Alexander. Jodell White, let's see. Hearts Love says, like and subscribe. Yes, yes, authenticity, Carol says. Hearts Love Joe says, also messed up with my typing, LOL, meant to say, but I reached out to him recently. And then Jodell says, well, that's insane. I might need some of that. More is great. Amen to that. Great. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And this has been just an incredibly empowered conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you asking me on. And I'm wishing all of your subscribers the best. And if you get a chance to come in and say hello, we would love to see you. Also, I'm wishing you, Stephanie, the best with your dream with your Food Network thing. So, you know, I got my fingers crossed for you.
Thank you so much, girl.
You're welcome.
Yeah, guys. Oh my gosh, this has been so exciting. So remember tomorrow, 3:30 p.m., Siobhan and I, food therapy, we're making portobello mushroom fajitas. Ooh. So excited about that. Oh yeah. And we talk about all things mindset and empowered living. And so join us 3:30 p.m. live tomorrow. Guys, thank you again so much for joining. All those who've been watching and commenting. Love to you all. Gina, stay here real quick. I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody. Hey, and remember, if you'd like a frickin'licious bumper sticker, reach out. I'm proud of these guys. All right, everybody. Talk soon.